All right, we're back. We are COMP1004, and that's Rapid Application Development here at Georgian College, and it's the winter 2017 semester, week 12, part 1 of our broadcast. I want to talk about assignment 5. This is your final assignment, and like remember I kept on telling you, may have to do your final exam, may not. You're not going to have to do it after this. Okay, and here's how it's going to go. So this one assignment is going to be worth 20% of your grade. Right? 15% of your grade would have happened with this assignment, plus another 5 you would have had left over. So for 20 for your final, right? So this will give you 2 weeks to kind of do a final exam, right? Now this is going to be more of a fun assignment. That's a good thing for some of you, because we're going to make a slot machine. So we'll talk about what this is in a second, right? So a bit of a game that we're going to be creating. Let me pull up the details so you can see what I'm saying, right? So it should be available to you up on Blackboard at this point as well. All right, so here's assignment 5. So I'll go over the details with you guys, and then we'll talk about strategies on how to get it done, all right? By the way, I've also given you a bit of a starter project you can use, right? So you don't have to start from scratch. All right, so what is this thing that I'm getting you to build? Just to make it a little larger so everyone can see it. So it's due Monday, April the 17th. This is the day after Sunday. This time, normally on Mondays, we get together, yeah? Not that day. On Monday the 17th, we'll not have class, so because there will be no exam. But you will have a chance to do your exam itself. It'll be due and closed that day. So there won't be any for this one. So this is like, because it's the last day of class officially, right? There will be no opportunities for you to hand it in after this date. Right? So if you don't hand it in, that'll be a bad thing, right? So it'll close after midnight, right? Now you have all day. Normally, if you had an exam, you'd be done at 3, and then your exam would close, right? So this way, there is no close at 3. It's closed at midnight, so that's the advantage of this. And you also have 2 weeks to do it, all right? So of course, what am I going to do next week? Check to see if you've started, right? Because I know that people don't start. If I don't push you, I don't get you to start. And even when I do, because I'll tell you, for lab 3, the last one we did to check to see if you started assignment number 4, there were a slew of people. I would say almost 10 people who didn't have anything ready for me for that day. That's crazy loss of bonus marks, right? But everyone has different difficult lives, and this is where 60% of your marks usually dropped around this time around, like this is in the second half of the semester, right? So that's why it is the way it is. So what is this that you're building? Using your knowledge of C# and Visual Studio to create a C# slot machine game. So what am I doing with this? What am I saying when I say slot machine? How far do I want to take this? I mean literally making a 2D interface. And when you press a button, things start happening on the screen. You will be provided with a starter project that you may use for your game, and I'm going to show you that. For those comfortable with Unity, it means I'm not going to train you from the ground up. You may choose to use Unity, the Unity game engine, and C# to produce the game for the assignment. However, with Unity, there are restrictions, okay? You cannot download code from anywhere else. It must be all your own code. You can't use assets from anywhere else. Otherwise, if you go to the asset store, you can probably find a fully functional slot machine you can hand in. So that's not good. So please don't hand in somebody else's code. You're just going to get 0 for this thing, right? But however, you can use the Unity game engine to make it. If you're someone who's inclined that way, if you want to learn Unity, it is still rapid application development, and you are able afterwards, when you make a Unity game, to deploy it to multiple devices. You can deploy it to iOS and Android, and it's kind of your lead-in into other worlds, other possibilities with C#, and that's why I gave you the opportunity to do that. This is the only one that you're going to have a chance to do that with, and it's your final one. So as it says here, it's worth 20% of your final grade. So what am I asking you to do? Well, for anyone not know what a slot machine is, first of all? Some people, from different places, they don't know what slot machines are. They don't have access to them. So they kind of look like this, right? Slot machine. So am I actually making it something like you make money from or whatever? It's not like that. It's a simulation. Okay, so let's got to say that from the first time. And by the way, once you do a slot machine here, you can do it across different platforms. The slot machine for me is one of my hello worlds. All right. And what I mean by that is just like we did the calculator. Calculator to me, slot machine. You know, there's some similar games like that I make. And when I know how to do these simple applications across different platforms, I learn the platform, right? So same here when it comes to the slot machine. So again, you need to have some kind of interface that's not your standard interface. It's not going to be your just labels and buttons like we normally have. This is where you actually have a chance of making your interface a little bit more unique for C#. Okay, but for the most part, you know everything. There will be no data component to this. So it's not like you need to have a data component like a database or anything like that. Okay. The way it would work is when you click the spin button, as long as you have enough money, right, or enough credit, let's put it that way, then the pictures on the reels inside these little windows here will change, right? Depending on the pattern that you get in the pixel in the windows, you'll either have a win or a loss type of pattern you get. As an example, you may have more of a win than other wins. Okay, so we'll talk about that. So in real life, when you go and play slots, if you're so inclined, I don't play slot machines, but it's a great exercise for you to learn, right? And by the way, the reason why I don't play the slots is not because I don't like playing games. I love games, but the slot machine game is a losing game. Okay, that you'll always lose in the long run. Okay, it's not something that you'll ever gain. The reason why it's called a one-armed bandit is because exactly what it is. It takes your money, right? So please don't play this game in real life. I don't recommend it, right? The chances that you'll get lucky and walk out with thousands of dollars is very, very low. You might as well go outside and get struck by lightning. All right, that's the kind of on a sunny day, right? It's really that rare for you to get lots of money. You might win a little bit of money here and there, but that's the whole draw. The whole draw is, hey, I just won a little bit of a jackpot. I'm going to stay and keep playing, and eventually all your money's gone. Right? That's what ends up happening. So with no effort, all the casinos have to do is just have this machine sitting there. There's no attendant, and it'll just make money all day long, right? And that's what it does. Where does the money come from? From you guys, right? So please don't do that. Please don't go and play this game. It's just for simulation purposes. We're making a game like this. Mechanic behind it. There's a way, rules, business rules, the way this game will work, right? It has to work in a certain way, and what I'm asking you to do is adhere to the business rules. All right, so again, so the user has some business rules. Here's the business rules. You can't make the wheels spin here, the reels. You can't make these spin unless you have credit. No credit, no spinning. That's part of the fun, making these spin, right? And then you have to bet something. You have to kind of put up part of your credit. You load the machine with credits, and then part of the credits that you load up into the machine, right, you can allocate to your bet. The bet is how much you think there's a chance that you're going to win, right? And whatever you bet, there's a chance you're going to get that back plus a bunch of multiplications, plus a multiplied version of your return, right? So that's the whole draw. The whole draw is you're gambling with your money. You put your money in, and then you might get your money back plus and then some, right? Now, there's different odds to different slot machines. And if you notice that this one is the most simplistic one, where you have one bet line, okay? One bet line, where there's only this line we care about. So each of the reels, there's a pattern, and as long as you don't get a blank in the pattern, you win something. Now, let me tell you this. The code that I'm giving you has, out of 65 different possibilities for each reel, 45 of them are blanks. So guess what's going to happen? You're probably going to lose most of the time, right? Which is kind of realistic in real life. You'll lose most of the time, but there'll be times where you'll be winning, right? So that's the probability, the way it works. And what I mean by multiple bet lines, if I look at slot machines up online, so if I actually look at some images for slot machines, slot machine, right? And if I look at some images here, that's all I'm looking at. Hopefully we won't see any weird bad images. Sometimes we get bad images when I put slot machine up, eh? I don't want to say what those bad images are, but there's some bad images out there, right? Just in case you're wondering. So here's an example of a slot machine with five reels, okay? Obviously, this is more complex and a much higher chance to lose, right? That's what all it means, much higher. This is your typical. Typically, you have 3 reels, okay? Reels are the windows that the images will pop up. That's what it is, okay? Just for definitions. Bet line, what does that mean? See this little line that goes right here? This little line that goes across? That's the bet line. That means any image that comes in here, if there's a match, usually like, for example, in this case, there's 3 of the same, you're going to get more value out of this. But however, if one of them was a blank, like this one was a blank, then you wouldn't win anything, chances are. There are slot machines with multiple bet lines. Instead of a slot machine just that goes across this way, I'm just going to see if I can find one. Here's one. There's a bet line that goes like this, right? And the odds are really weird on this one, and of course they're just going to make you lose more money. That's all it's for, right? I just want to find that one that has multiple bet lines. There's ones that diagonal. There's ones that have all kinds of possibilities, and slot machine with multiple bet lines. So on. So I put that in as a search. But you can see that the patterns, there's usually some kind of fruit or pattern that you're going to have to match. So slot machine, multiple lines. Let's see if they have that. There we go. Perfect. So that's the same example, but this is a good example, right? Where you have bet lines that go this way as well as this way. I don't need you to do that. All I need is one bet line that's straight across. So what I mean by bet lines is where they match, okay? So sometimes even if you lose this way, they allow you to win this way and this way, right? And that's another draw. They're like, hey, I can play with multiple bet lines, but you know what? The only way you can play with multiple bet lines, you put more money inside of it, right? More money. Chances are you might win a little bit, but you put a lot, and then you lose more of your money, right? At the end of the day, casinos in general, when you play cards, roulette, some kind of slot machine or whatever, any kind of games of chance in a casino is made for you to lose your money, right? It's not made for you to win. Even if you're a professional player and you're there all the time, a lifetime, you're down, okay, for the most part. So please be careful when it comes to this kind of stuff in real life. I'm not advocating that this is what I want you to do. It's just a simulation for mechanics, for our game mechanics, okay? That's just what a slot machine is. So again, I've given you some images here of possible slot machines you could build, okay? Let me go back up to the top and explain this. So if some people don't know what they are now, hopefully now you have an idea of what they are. So again, let's look at specifics. So your slot machine form. So we're looking forms, okay? If you're going to do the C# method, if you're building a C# application, not the Unity 3D, okay, then you need some kind of slot machine form. The slot machine form will have 3 picture box controls in the main form, 1 for each reel of the slot machine. So 3 picture boxes, right? That have a default image, something like a spin or a blank or something. Let's say they're broke, whatever you want to call it. There's just some default image when the form initially loads. And the images and the reels will change every time the user presses the spin button. So every time I press the spin button, they just flicker, they flash, okay? I don't need you to do animation, all right? Animation is a bonus. If you want to do animation, make the reels look like they're moving, that's a bonus. Images that appear in the image window should be one of the symbols, example, fruits. What if you don't want to use fruits? You want to make your own symbols. You want to make, I don't know, a Star Wars slot machine. Or, I don't know, Ghost in the Shell slot machine, or some other favorite thing, Game of Thrones slot machine, right? Go ahead, right? That just means more work for you, right? Because you have to get some of those images, and there has to be a match, between those things, right? I've had people in the past do a Game of Thrones slot machine where they just got the shields of the houses as an example, for the houses, then you're good. But Lannister is always a loss, right? I don't know. It's just the way it worked. And they also made it so that you can pick a house. So you pick the house that the highest value, and they made all kinds of an interesting game. So it was an original game for them. I'm okay with that. Again, it's just an exercise for you guys to be, to have a good time. It's not really for you guys to create your own symbols. That's not the exercise here. You must connect the methods contained in the slot machine provided, or write your own code. So that means I'm already giving you methods. I've already given you your code, some of it, all right? And there's a reason for this, because for you to calculate how the slot machine actually works can be quite involved. There's a bit of an algorithm that I'm going to give you, and you can certainly use the stuff I've given you or make your own, okay? You're going to add a spin button or picture box control. Now, I'm making it one or the other because even though it's a picture box and not a button, you can still click on it, right? And sometimes we want to use a picture box because it gives us more control over what the image will look like and how it works, the actual spin button image, right? So again, it's just like using a picture as something you're going to press on, right? You can do that special hover effect. When you hover your mouse over, it swaps the picture out in the background with an event. And then when you hover out, then it puts it back in, right? So it kind of creates that weird look and feel to the button. So this is where the action happens. The code to make your reel spin should be connected to this button. So whatever the button's called or picture box, this control is what's going to control the reels from spinning, okay? You also need a button to control the form that allows you to reset the game. So same, let's say, for example, you lose all your money, no credits. Somehow the slot machine robbed you. One-armed bandit stole all your money. Most likely it does it in real life too. You can reset the game and play again. And there's also going to be a quit control, so you can quit the game. You're going to also add several buttons or picture box controls to allow the users to enter a bet. Now, in the past, what that means is, please, in real life, no one can actually enter an amount with a keyboard, typically in real life. So please, I'm not asking for that. Don't make it so that there's a text box that people can enter in a bet. That doesn't compute in real life, right? You have some kind of buttons, like 5, 10, 15, 20, $50, whatever it's going to be that you put in. 50 credits. I mean, let's not use money. It could be, you put a slot machine anywhere in the world, right? That's the great thing about it, right? It has a value, whether you put it in Asia, you know, or in Europe somewhere, or here in Canada and the US. Credits are credits. There's no denomination. There's no US dollars or Canadian dollars. You buy the credits, and whenever you get your credits, you put it in there and you play, right? That's how it is. So let's keep it to credits, not money. Or not you know, some kind of dollar amount. All right, so some kind of labels that display the user's credits, money, the current jackpot, and the current bet. Again, a bet is a wager, some way of putting up some of your credits potentially that you're going to lose. And if you somehow spin the wheels randomly and they come up your favor, you win. You can either win or lose, one of those two options. Several buttons or picture box controls that allow the user to enter a bet. All right, so this part here is, okay, I'm going to have a 50 button, a 100 button, a 500 button, as an example, and depending on what I press, that's going to be my bet. Okay. Ensure that when the user enters a bet amount, that the program checks, validates if he has enough money. What if I put 500 but I only have 10 credits left? It should go, meh. It shouldn't allow you to do that, right? Because you're trying to bet more than you have, so the program should check. So again, this is validation. So again, there's a mechanic in, you know, to make this thing work. Okay, this is the one application. There's no calculations. You don't have to think about how much money, and you know, like I've done every single application up to date. Assignment 1, 2, 3, 4. There's always some kind of calculation for money. This is not that. Do you win or lose, and do you have enough money to play? If you don't have enough money to play, it will not allow you to play. Okay. Especially if you don't bet. If you don't bet anything, the bet is 0, you can't play. Have to bet. If the user doesn't have enough money to make the bet, gray out or disable, right, the spin button control. So it should not be allowed to happen, all right, if he doesn't have enough money or she doesn't have enough money. Okay. Include conditions that allow the player to potentially win the jackpot. Okay, that means that there's some kind of rare number, whatever you want to call it, and I'll show you how to calculate that. Where if you have, there's a small percent, right, as an example, every time the user plays, right, usually in some kind of slot machine games, they have something called progressive, right? It's really interesting. They have your money, plus there's some kind of total at the top, $100,000, or win the car, one of those kind of things. And then, but it makes people go, right? It makes people go to the slot machine to basically spend all their money. That's what it's for, right? And that win the car, you have, you know, 0.01% chance to win, or 1% chance, right? Possible to them to win. If that means out of every 1,000 rolls, there's a chance to win the slot machine if they want. So there's two conditions. You have to win, and somehow you got the numbers right to win the jackpot, right? So I'll leave that to you to figure that out. You can use the example code provided for your odds. I've already given you some examples for that. And reflect the jackpot win by displaying a special message, some kind of message box that comes up, or some kind of, maybe make the slot machine flash or something to make the user know that he won the jackpot or she won the jackpot. This is required. Add a slot machine graphic object that gives the interface the look and feel of a slot machine. So this is the one part that you have to create that's worth 2 marks, okay, where you actually make the background of the slot machine look like a slot machine. You can get one from the internet, right? Post it on the back end. Put your controls in the front. So make sure that that's in the background, okay, of your machine. You know, but all your controls should be layered on top of that, and we'll talk about a way of doing that. Okay. If you're using Windows and C# with Visual Studio, then I want you to name your form slot machine form.cs. Okay. We'll talk about the Unity one in a second. All right. There's a whole other way of doing it. The Windows form and all attached UI controls must have appropriate variable names with the following format: control name UI. This is all the same stuff I normally get to. Internal documentation is all the same, right? You must share your files on GitHub. Okay, that's what you must do, your files on GitHub. And here's some optional game features. Notice that I didn't ask you at any point in time, make noise, right, with your slot machine. Those are all bonuses, right? So things like sound clips, right? That's for you to research to find out how to do that, right? If you do that, if they activate sound clips, then you get 4 bonus marks. Okay? If you create an animation effect for the reels. So what do I mean by that? Right now the reels, all I want you to do is when you press the spin button, they just change. There's no animation. They just swap the image. That's all they're doing, image swapping. Okay? When you whatever it is, it's going to show you the images that are going to be there. That's the basic. If you want bonuses, make them animate. So make them kind of look like they're moving around, okay? There's ways. There's always ways to do it. Remember, games are all tricks, right? So whenever we want to animate something, we're doing it behind the scenes. We're making it look like like one thing is happening, but actually something totally different is happening. And it's not really what we're looking at. Okay, include additional reels. This is crazy for you to do this for 5 marks. 5 reels instead of 3. That means you have to come up with your own logic, modify my logic heavily. If you really want to challenge, this is something you can do. Same thing with bet lines. Because these two things go hand in hand, C and D, bet lines and more reels and all this other stuff, because you got to figure out there still has to be more chance the person can lose than win. That means you may have to change the options, right? So if they win this way, they don't win as much. I don't know. Some kind of diagonal. You don't win as much, but you still win a little bit to keep the guy playing, right? Or if you win everything, and somehow they get like in a group of 5. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. So let's suppose that you have something like this, right, where you can see some of the symbols on the top here, and you can win this way and this way. Oh. What that means is, like, for example, this, see there's a bar, bar, bar. That could be a partial win, right? Partial win. But you also, you know, maybe you'll lose this way or something. So, you know, you win some and lose some, and you have to make your own calculations for how you won. That's up to you. That's crazy, right? And the reason why I'm saying that is because it literally is difficult to do. You have to modify the code. But if you want a challenge, go ahead, right? All right, for the basic slot machine, the one you do with C#, all I need from you is a zip archive of your project files and a link to your files on GitHub. Okay. Now, the modifications for the Unity 3D one. The only thing I want you to add extra for your Unity 3D is I want you to do, and I'll put this up online as well, I want you to do a WebGL build. Okay, so we'll talk about that, what that is when we go to Unity. I'm going to show you some of that today. Because the WebGL build will allow me to actually double-click and make it work, and I won't have to, you know, do a lot of work to download the application, put it into Unity 5. You know, we'll talk about that. Any questions about what I'm asking you to build? What is this thing, this monster that I'm getting you to build? By the way, again, just to reiterate, this thing is taking the place of your final exam. There will be no final exam in this course. All right, this is worth 20% of your final grade. You have 2 weeks to do this thing. There are no extensions. There's no, if you don't hand it in by midnight on the Monday, you get 0. Okay, there is no extensions because that's the final day. It's almost like having your final exam, you didn't hand it in, right? So it's like a final exam, but it's till midnight instead of like 3 o'clock, which would be our final exam, okay? You don't have to be here for the final exam. You can do it from home, yes.
Is there any need for Auto to update the 5.6 or 5.5?
I'm totally fine with it. You know, honestly, it doesn't matter. I don't think there's a big difference in terms of everything else. I think as long as it's 5.5 something, you're probably okay, right? You know, I think if you want to go to 5.6, you can, but even if you did that, you'd have to convert my code because my code's from 5.4 probably, if I'm not wrong, even 5.3 because it was last time I did it, which was in December. right? Believe it or not, from then till now, lots of changes, right, in Unity. So if you wanted to go there, well, we can do that. So I'm going to start off with the project that I've given you. So I want to show you this. So let me show you what I've given you. So I've given you two actual code bases, okay? The one code base is for Unity, and it says slot machine - Unity, all right? If you're interested in doing that option, okay, then you would use this project for Start Base, okay? If you're interested in doing the slot machine with VS, that's Visual Studio, right? Then you choose that option, okay? Please don't try and use the Unity code base for your Visual Studio slot machine, right? It will not work. You will not have success. You'll waste your time, okay? So I'm just telling you this in advance. What do I mean by this stuff? Let's start off with the VS1 first. I'm going to copy this VS1, copy, and I'm going to go across to Windows for a second, just for a second, and then let's not go into here. And I'm going to paste this in here just to show you the code. So I'm going to kind of go in here. This is what you get. This is up online already. So if I double click on Visual Studio, I'm going to get the following code base that I've given you. This is stuff that I'm asking you to use, right? So please don't try and recreate this on your own if you don't have to. If you can make this work, and most likely it will work for you, you just literally all you have to do is use this code base and expand on it. All right? So here you go. Look, slot machine form, right? Slot machine form. And if I double click on it, what do I get so far? Ta-da, just this, right? And if I press start, right? Here's the button. Take a look. I got a button here already too. Spin. Click on it, right? Banana, or blank, banana, blank. That's what you get right now, right? What does this mean? Blank, banana, blank. It means you lost. That's what it means. Blanks are you lose when you hit blanks. And when you hit a banana, if it was all 3 bananas, you would win, right? Let's try it again. So you lost, right? Here's your player stats so far. By the way, all these little windows that come up, I don't want you to see them. I don't want to see them ever again after if you submit this. This is just for you. This is just for debugging purposes that I put this up, okay? These 3 windows, these message boxes, I don't want to see them. I don't want to see a message box, period, for your final, all right? Your final version. It's just for debugging purposes. If I click again, blank, cherry, still lost, right? I got a blank in there, I lost, right? Here's my percentages. Click it again. Grapes, banana. Ah, that's a win, right? And if I look at it, I won 20 bucks because by default, I'm betting $10, right? And there's your chances. So you see that there's 3 turns. I got 1 win and 2 losses, 33% win ratio, and loss is 66%. I only played 3 times, right? Here's my player money. Here's my jackpot, okay? Spin again. Bell, grapes, orange. Holy, you guys are making me lucky, man. I should go to the slot. I should go to the slots today to play. I'm joking. Don't ever do it. It's a waste of your money. You'll lose. You won 10 bucks again somehow. I can't believe it. 10 bucks. All right, cool. And now you can see that it's 50-50 because of the win ratio. By the way, this will drastically change if I keep playing. So if I click it again, I lost. Right? Click it again. I lost. Click it again. I won. Not too much. Click it again. I lost. Let's just keep doing this a couple times until you can see that the win ratio should slip down to about 20%. Should slip down, like I said. Should. You guys are just making me lucky. Look at this. It's crazy. I don't understand. Right? Should slip down to about 20%, right? So there you go. And eventually it will. Over time, you're going to see that the chances of you winning is very low. And then you're going to keep going until, you lose. Any questions around what this is doing here for us? It's just the spin button itself is connected to the method that generates your chances to win. The assumption is that you have bet 10 bucks. That's what's happening here, okay? Let's take a look at the code a little bit so you understand what's happening. So I've given you a code base, right? You're not starting from scratch. And the reason why is because that part can be quite difficult to kind of put together, right? This part is easier. All right, here's your ugly brute force code that I gave you, a bunch of floats, floating point numbers and strings to keep track of whether you won, you lost, all this kind of stuff is all there. So example, grapes, bananas, and oranges. And the reason why I did this, by the way, is I've been avoiding here at this step regular expressions, which I'm going to cover a little bit today, right? What are regular expressions, right? But without regular expressions, it looks like this. It means like I have to keep track of all my how many times I won, you know, whatever, because I'm not searching the string. I'm generating a random number, right? That's what's happening at the top. And then as I go into my player stats, this is the little method that shows me my player stats inside of a message window, all right, a message box. Well, I need to see this at the end? No, this is just for your testing. So you turn this off. Leave it in your code if you want, but turn it off. I don't want to see it at the end. I don't care about your stats. Stats are for you, not for me, right? Reset the fruit tally. This works to reset everything. If I want to start from scratch again, if I want to reset my game, right? I do this. Reset all. Not just the fruit tally, but also your money and your jackpot and everything, right? Check jackpot. This checks. Now, how do I check to see if I've won the jackpot? There has to be a win condition. So I won. Plus, I'm going to roll 2 random numbers between 1 and 50, right? And if I get the exact same number, you won the jackpot. What's the chance of that happening? Low, right? It's really low, right? It's 50 to the power of 2 in terms of like, possibilities, right? 1 in that many possibilities. 50 times 50, I think it's 2,500. 1 in 2,500. Woo, right? Am I right? Yeah. So you can make this even more rare if you want to. Make it, instead of 550, make it to, I don't know, 500. So it almost never happens, right? That means it's really big. But again, there's 2 possibilities. There's 2 things that have to happen to get the jackpot. You have to have a winning condition. So example, there cannot be blanks inside your formula. No blanks, right? So you won some money, and then there's a chance we roll 2 numbers, and if they're the same, then you won the jackpot. So there's a second thing that happens afterwards, right? Okay. Here's the win message. Here's the loss message. You won, you lost, right? And I show the loss message. Then I have this function called check range that basically allows me to check the range between my lower bounds number and an upper bounds number. Why do I use this? Because inside of my reals function, this is the horse that does all the work for you, all right, right here. How does this work? I set up 2 strings, or actually 1 string and 1 integer array, right? Here's my string array. It's called betline, and I'm initializing my string array with blanks, all right, blanks. So everything is blank, right? And my outcome right now is zeros. Okay, that's what it is. So they're just initializing both arrays as 0. There's definitely different ways to do this. I've just made it easy for you guys so you understand things. Here's how it goes. 4. If my spin is equal to 0, where spin is less than 3, why am I doing this? Because I want to there's 3 reals, right? So I'm going to do this 1 time for every reel. That's what I'm doing, right? Okay, my outcome, spin, right? So outcome is the actual integer array. My outcome, spin, is equal to a random number between 1 and 65, right? A random number. Okay, cool. Now, if my spin result, okay, and by the way, I'm storing this thing. So my outcome, I'm storing, right? If my spin result is between 1 and 27, that's what this is. That's what this thing does. That's what my check range function does. It checks to see that this result here, it falls between 1 and 27, okay? If it's between 1 and 27, which is 41% chance probability, right? It's a blank. So I didn't say 45. It's not 45. It's 27 blanks. 27 blanks, and then the rest is something else, right? By the way, if you wanted to change your odds, add more blanks, more losses for the player, right? I'm just saying. If the range is between 28 and 37, that means it's grapes, right? That's what comes up. And notice that my bet line itself, my bet line, which is this part right here, right? My bet line takes on grapes. It gets added in. So my bet line is now grapes. Now my bet line is grapes as an example, right? But my bet line only cares about 3 objects. There's only, if you notice what I've created here, I've created an array of 3 elements, right? Element 0, element 1, element 2. That's all that's happening here. That's how this thing works, right? This initialization method only initializes my array. So this one initializes the 0th element, this one initializes the first element, and this one initializes the second element. That's what it does. So it initializes my array. Same here, 0, 1, and 2. It's just an initialization syntax that you can see in C#. Actually, it's very similar in Java. If you've done Java, the initialization syntax for arrays, almost exactly the same. Okay? So this is what this does. So now this is for each of the elements. So 0, so let's say it's the 0th spin. For the 0th spin, you get a number. And depending on where it lands, it's going to assign this string array a different value. Blank, grapes, banana, whatever it's going to be, right? Most likely it's going to be blanks because there's more of them in that range than anything else, okay? Notice that the most rare one is the 7. That only happens one time if you hit 65, right? Somehow, 65 out of 65, it's a 7, right? Most of the time, you will not get a 7, or you will not hit a 7. You'll almost get something else. All right, so at the same time that I'm allocating the string to the array, I'm also counting how many of these things I have. Why am I counting? Because if I have one blank, any blank, you lost, number one. That's why I'm counting. If I have 2 grapes and a banana, that's a different win condition than, for example, 2 oranges and a cherry, right? So depending on how many you have, how many combinations of fruits, that's how your win works, okay? Now, do you need to know any more about how this works? No. I'm just telling you so you can see it where I got it from, right? Okay, finally, I return the array, all right? When I return the array, I'm actually returning the completed array. That means each of the elements, 0, 1, and 2, are going to be filled with something, and it's a string that I'm returning. Because that's what I've told this method that does. This method here, right, is a private method that returns a string array. That's what it returns, okay? String array. I return that back to the calling function, whatever that is, okay? Here's another method, determine winnings. Okay. Depending on how many of these things are there, blanks, grapes, and whatever, right? It depends on how much money you have. How does this work? If I have a blank, any blank, you're lost, right? So I check to see if blanks is equal to 0, right? That means there's no blanks in that last possibility. There was no blanks. You didn't lose. That's what this means, right? So if blanks, the blank count, if you will, or the tally of how many blanks you have is equal to 0, you don't have any blanks, you won something. Let's see what you won. If you have 3 grapes, right, then you won whatever the player bet is, whatever you bet, times 10, right? So if I put 10 bucks in, you get $100. That's what it means, 100 credits, okay? And you can see that it continues to go up. For example, if I get 3 of anything, you get multipliers, right? If it's 3 of anything. But depending on what 3 you get, like for example, the biggest one would be 3 sevens. Here's 3 sevens. 3 sevens. You get whatever you bet times 100. Right? It means you could win potentially if you put 10 bucks in, $1,000. Right? Chances are it's almost impossible to get 3 sevens because it's like 1% chance for each of the different reels, and by the time you figure out your percentages, it's very low. Right? Very, very low. All right, what about if you get 2 of something and 1 of something else? So if I get 2 grapes, I don't care about the other one. 2 grapes, you get times 2, right? If you get 2 sevens, though, right, you still get times 10. Or sorry, times 20, right? Even if you get 2 sevens. And if you get 1 7, right, 1 7, you still get times 5. Even 1 7 with something else, as long as you don't lose, you still get money back. You still get 5 times your winning, right? Else, if you just get some random assortment of fruits that don't really give you anything special, then you still get your money back. That's what it does. It just gives your money back. Yes? Because 2 bells and 1 7. 1 7 is going to give you 5. Oh, no, it won't. 5 7 won't work. Yeah. And you can modify that. You can modify this. You're right. You can modify this to make it work. Jackpot, it checks the jackpot only if you won, right? So far I go down here and say, here's my winning number. I won. I just add up how many times I won. That's all this is, right? In the end, I don't care about this. I don't care about this at all. And the win message, I don't care about this at all either. These two things that happen in this function, I don't care about them, right? It's just for you. It's just for you to use. You can comment them out when you're done, okay? And then I also calculate my loss number, okay? Here's my spin picture box. That's what I made. And instead of a spin button, I made it a spin picture box, okay? When it gets clicked, it's very simple. My player bet is my default amount is 10 bucks, all right, in this particular case, right? If my player money is equal to 0, then I can't bet, right? Somehow if I lost all my money. And that's what this part does here. If my player bet is greater than my player money, so I don't have 0 money, but I have some money, but still not enough, then it's going to give you a warning, right? If my player bet is less than 0, that means somehow I give it a negative amount. Somehow your program gave it a negative amount. I check for that too. Otherwise, if my player bet is less than or equal to my player money, so I have enough money to make a bet, right? Then call the reals function, get the spin results, right? Now take my fruits. I have a separate variable that I'm using just so you guys can see this. I take the total line itself. I create my string. This is the string that I'm using. You may not have to do this at the end, but all I've done is split out my different results because the spin result itself is going to have all 3 in 0, 1, and 2 positions, the different amounts, right? That's what it's going to do. And I've just broken them out here into a fruits string. That's what this thing is. The fruit string basically is going to show you the entire string all stitched together, right? So blank banana, banana, or blank, blank cherry, or whatever it's going to be, all one string. That's what's going to happen, right? I determine my winnings depending on what I rolled that particular round, right? I increase my turns, and I show my player's stats, okay? Else, enter a valid bet amount. Somehow you didn't add something right? One of those 3. Now again, the stuff that I've given you to try out here is the basic algorithm to make things work. What I'm asking you to do is modify what you need to modify to make this into a game, right? And that means you need a background image and all that kind of stuff. Well, guess what? Don't hunt around. If you're someone who doesn't have time, this is your final exam, right? Then guess what I've given you? I've given you some resources, right? All the images you need, I've given everything for you. All right, so you don't have to do anything by yourself. You don't have to go hunt for images or whatever, or your whatever. It's here for you, right? Which is, I know that's a big headache when you have to go hunt for images, how they work, where they fit, and all that kind of stuff, right? And if I was going to show you this, if you actually go to your project resources, so if I go to hit project and slot machine properties, right, you can see that these are the images, okay? I've even given you a background image. That's the slot machine itself, right here, right? So here's your bet line, right? Here's your bet line. Here's bell, bar, blah, 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 blah. These are all the things that happen here. The 7, right? And here's your blank. It actually is an image, right? Because I want you to layer this on top of your reels, right? So what do I mean by this? How do I want you to do this? Okay, I'm going to do this basic for you guys in a second, all right? So let's suppose, and this is not the solution. I'm just showing you what you could possibly think about doing. Let's suppose I want to put my slot machine so it shows up back here. There's 2 possibilities. And I'm going to ask you which one you think is the right thing to do, right? A, should I make the background form display the slot machine? That's one possibility. The background form displays the image, right? B, make a other picture box that hangs out behind this one, right? Picture box is in the back, right? And this one is layered on top, okay? Let me give you both to give you an example of what you can do. So let's suppose I take my slot machine and I'm going to go into my properties here, right, for my slot machine, which is right here. And if I look at the slot machine itself, come on, properties. Let me just pin the properties on. Hey, and I'll unpin the Solution Explorer here. Cool, cool. So here's my slot machine. Now you can see that the background image is none. I could choose, if I wanted to use a background image of my slot machine. So if I go down to slot machine here, it's already there. This is the one way of doing it. Ta-da! There it is. Now it looks okay. It looks okay. No, it looks okay, right? However, right? What if I do one of these, right? One of those. And, that's a problem, right? I can align the button, but see how the button stays where it is? You might want to think about what happens. I'm not asking you for you to make this responsive at all. I'm not asking you to say, hey, what if the person has a different size screen or whatever? No, no, no. I'm just saying this is definitely one possibility. But if you do it this way, right, which is fine, the challenge is you have to layer everything on top. Notice that this picture box is on top of everything else. Okay, so this is one possibility. I'll leave it to you to decide what to do. All right? Because again, this is your final assignment that you're doing. Okay, so I'm going to go to here, and we'll go to my background image here, and I'm just going to say nothing, none. So that's one. How about if I did a picture box control? This is the other way of doing it, and I want you to think about what's the better way. You know, if you're going to do it this way. So here's my toolbox, and I'm going to go to common controls, and I'm going to look at my picture box, drag and drop it onto this image, right? And then I'm going to kind of make it so that it is as big, or let's say almost as big as the entire screen. So I want to do one of these. Okay, and I'll layer this. By the way, you can also decide to where the layering is. Notice it says bring to front, send to back. I can send this to back. So now my picture box is on the back, and it's every other picture box is layered on top. All the stuff you want to see is on top, and everything else is behind, right? Just like Photoshop or any other kind of image manipulation program, right? And then again, I just can go in here, and I can choose an image from my list, just like we did before, right? I'm going to choose my slot machine. Here it is, and OK. And I can adjust it, so I can choose the different way of doing this. If I, for example, if I said something like stretch image, let's see what that does. That kind of makes it like this, right? You can also make it so that it's zoom. That's more accurate, right? Because it makes it more proportional. Right? And then what I could do is the form, some people have done this, could be whatever size I want it, right? Maybe I want to add some button controls over here, right? As I'm saying, you can make this your own, right? But yet the image stays over here. More control. Some people may like this way, some people may not, right? Just saying, these are things you can do. What I don't want, right, is somehow both. Don't put the image back here and here, right? That's not what I want you to do. That would be really messed up. Notice also that there's some other issues. Notice that this button, when you layer it on top, has a problem. What's the problem? Right? Yeah. Yeah, you can see the white space, right? So there's a way of making the alpha transparency so you can see through it, the button on the black, right? And you need to figure that out, right? So if I should look at the picture, this is still a picture box, this thing here, right? So you can see that if I look through the picture box as an object, right? Here's my image, slot machine spin button, right? This is the initial image, this location and margin and modifiers, you know, all these things. Where do I have any idea of alpha transparency? Do I have anything like that? Well, the back color is transparent, right? That's what it says. Back color is transparent, right? If I choose something else, like, I don't know, black, right? Then you can see that it kind of fits in. If you really wanted to go there, if you were going to use it this way, right? And there's a bunch of other things you could do. If I went back to transparent, the problem is the reason why this is showing is it's not layering properly. And I'll leave that to you. Again, part of this is trying to figure out how this is going to work. If I was to run this thing now, just for a second, right? If I was to run this thing, you can see that there's not a problem, right? I mean, it'll still spin. So if I kind of spin, it'll still run. Everything else will run the way it does. I'm just showing you what it looks like, just so you can see the image itself. One thing I probably would like you not to do, notice how I kind of grayed out this maximize button. That doesn't make any sense. And because you're going to have a quit, kill this whole top level row. You shouldn't even have this thing in here, right? Because you shouldn't have a quit. There should be a quit button, right? Some kind of power button or whatever, right? That comes inside this, right? So get rid of the control box. I didn't tell you to do it, but I recommend it. Okay. So slot machine. So does it run? Yes, it does. Right? And you have some basics. Any questions around the VS version of this machine, of this slot machine? Okay. The challenge arises when you really are someone to push yourself. You want to push yourself. You want to be in. You're into games, or you want to make a cross-platform application, and then you don't want to use Visual Studio at all. You want to use a Unity, right? Just saying, if you wanted to go there, if you wanted to push yourself, you can. However, and I'll be showing you Unity over the next couple of weeks, right, just to get you going, to help you out. But I've also set up a project for Unity as well. So it's not like you're starting with zero at Unity, right? So anyone else have any questions around the VS version, the Visual Studio version, right? Totally acceptable. You can totally make this work for yourself. I'm okay with you getting this working properly. Obviously, the idea is to layer the images in here so that when you press the button, the images come alive and they switch. That's all I'm doing. And also somewhere up here, I mean, and if you use but what if, here's another question. What if you don't like my images? The stuff I provided you guys, you don't like them. You want to use something else. Go ahead, right? At least you have my images as a guide for how big they should be, right? You have an idea of what I'm looking for. You can always make your own if you want to really push yourself, right, to make this an interesting project, if you have time for that. You probably don't have time for that, right? But if you do have time, then you can push yourself, get your own images. I just made one for you, so you don't have to, make it your own. All right, I'm just going to get rid of this, right? So I'm going to kind of delete this one, so we don't need that right now. And get back to what it was before. It kind of looked like this. That's all I had. All right, cool. So that's slot machine with VS. Let's talk about the slot machine for a second with Unity. Now, with Unity, you need to go onto the Unity site, and I've talked about this before really briefly. I've always been interested in trying to go there for you guys and help you, and I'm going to do it now, is you have to download Unity. Notice that Unity 5.6 has just arrived, right? Downloading Unity takes time, okay? Please don't try it in class. For those people who tried it before, and you had Unity 5.5, you're going to do it all again, right? Okay? There is no upgrade path. It's not like you can sit and go, I'm going to upgrade. I'm going to change my stuff to 5.6. No. You have to get rid of Unity. Well, leave Unity there. Don't get rid of it because it'll keep your settings and everything else, right? But download Unity again. So another 30 gig download. Install it, and then it'll replace what's already there. That's how it's done. Okay? If you do it any other way, right? For example, you get rid of it, and that's another way you can do it too. But why would you do that? Just easier, right? There is no upgrade path, right? There used to be. There used to be a way of, I'm going to update, and then it would just update Unity. But now they don't do that anymore. If I click get Unity, all right, notice that they have the free version. This is the one you want. You don't want one of these unless you're going to be making games for a living, right? And you have your own company, game company, okay? Now, again, even though we're making a game with Unity, Unity can be used as a cross-platform application development, platform, if you will, right? And why? Because it can deploy to different platforms now. And the great thing is, I think they just included the Switch too. So they've included all kinds of other things. I think they included Daydream and a bunch of other stuff. So this is where you download Unity. If I click download now, it's going to take me to my installer. I'm not going to do that here, but you would download Unity 5.6. Again, it's going to take at least 30 gigs, if not more. Okay.
It will also kind of update Visual Studio.
Yes,
it'll reinstall it.
It'll. You don't have to do that though. You can ignore that because it can use Community Edition. It actually tries to install Community Edition, if you will. What it might do is include an extension if you already have your Visual Studio included, right? So be careful with that because it might mess your Visual Studio up, right? All right, let's suppose that and the other thing is, by the way, the other way to get this is if you install Visual Studio 2017. That's another install path, right? Because Visual Studio 2017 actually allows you to install Unity and Unreal all at the same time for a good 60 gigabyte download if you're looking for that kind of download. If you really want to push it, actually, I think it'll go up to 100 gigs, right, with everything you want to download, right, which is insane. That is going to take a good chunk of time unless you have a really fast internet connection or you're doing it at school. Yeah, well, do it here. You can do it here too, right? It's fast. So anyways, that's where you get Unity. Let's try kicking Unity off here for a second to show you this part. So I'm going to open up Unity. In my version, I haven't updated, And if you didn't update, if you already downloaded 5.5, leave it. You don't have to go to 5.6, okay? Why bother? It's almost identical except for they've added a bunch more platforms as well as some other support for 2D physics and so on, all right? And I'm going to try this out. Notice that I can choose new, a new project, or open. In our case, we want to choose open, right? But I'm going to open up a project, and I'm just going to copy this this Unity project here just to show you. I'm going to copy this one. I'm going to put it over here, right? I'm copying it because I don't want to mess it up. Once you open it, you open it. You're done, right? And I'll let it do what it's supposed to do in the background. Here it is. Ta-da! There's the Unity project being opened, okay? And if you notice, if I open it up, you're going to see some, it's going to look like a different kind of project. If you open it up by any chance, if you download this from Blackboard and it looks like this inside, you downloaded the wrong project somehow. If you clicked on Unity instead of VS, don't use that one because it's not going to work properly for you, right? So that's the thing with Unity. All right, so let's load this up and see if it works. So I'm going to click open. I'm going to choose on my desktop, right, the slot machine for Unity. And notice I just have to be in here. Once I'm inside the folder, then I can click open. It's going to say, hey, even for me, because I made this last semester, it's going to say, the one that was made with the previous version, 5.4, and now you're at 5.5. What do you want to do? I want to continue. Right? It's going to re-import the assets and update my scripts. That's what it's going to do. Okay? Yay! There's my Unity slot machine. Right? It says failed to unload project settings, Unity asset adds settings, and that's fine. That's just a small issue we can kind of figure out later on. Unity adds settings. And that's not really an issue. Say that one? Close? Oh, closing this and open again? Yeah. Okay, let's try it. Sure. I'm sure it's something like silly like that because it's just a translation from one version to the other, right? So now that you've got it in there, you can always go back to Unity. Oops. Unity over here, and I'm just going to choose that same application, which is this one. Let's see if it works. Yay, no error. Thank you. All right, notice that Unity itself, this way of looking at Unity is the layout that I've chosen is 2x3. It's a different kind of layout. The default layout, looks like this. Okay, so you might see it like this. Okay, for you to get my layout, right? My layout of Unity. By the way, notice that the slot machine, I've just put it up there already, right? For you guys, for Unity. Why? Because using Unity is harder, believe it or not, than using C#, right? And that's why I've kind of given you guys a bit of an advantage in some ways, all right? If I instead of default, if I go to 2x3, I got work to do. It's going to look like this, but it's not exactly what I want, right? The way I work is I want to put my project underneath my hierarchy. That's just me, right? So I want to give myself more room. These windows are like terrible. You can tear them off, right? Not terrible as in like horrible. Like you can tear them off and move them around. Movable, I think is a better way to say it. Notice that my assets, I have an assets folder in Unity that has scenes, scripts, and textures, all right? Your structure in Unity is the following. Each of these windows means something. This is your scene window, right? The scene window is when you drag and drop components into this window. This is what you do when you develop your scene. The game window is what you actually see when you're running your program, okay? I'm going to move this game window. I'm going to tear it and move it over here to the top so I can see my scene window in more grandeur, like this. Notice that the scene window has already been set. Okay, I already set this up for you, right? So you have a way of doing this. This is a 2D project. If I click on the 2D icon on the left here inside of my scene window, right? Because I'm looking just at my scene window because the scene tab is selected, right? If I uncheck this, now you can see that it actually is not a 2D scene, right? What am I looking at here? I'm actually looking at a 3D scene with a camera, right? Here's my camera, left click, and you can see that the camera is a box, right? And it's looking at my little image in a from a three-dimensional view. All right. So moving things around, just navigation in Unity, right? If I right-click on my mouse, now you need a 3-button mouse for this. If I right-click on my mouse, you can tumble around the scene the way you like, okay? If I right-click. If I scroll out, you can zoom away. If I middle-click on the actual button itself, so the button, the little scroll wheel, if I click down on the scroll wheel, right? And if I actually just disable my mouse, I think. Did I? Yes, of course I did. I pulled it out. Anyways, if you were to, I'm just using my touchpad here for a second. Come on, button. Yeah, it's because I'm running like a million things at once too. It's fantastic, and I'm not going to muddle this up. But anyways, what it allows you to do there, what allows you to do is you can move around with your, if you click down on your scroll wheel, I can actually pan the scene. I can kind of get a hold of the scene. Notice my cursor turns into a hand, and I can pull the scene around, so I can kind of zoom in to see the object. If I want to see my slot machine, on the right here, you can see that there's a hierarchy. This hierarchy here has all the objects that have been currently installed in my scene. I have a camera, this. I have the slot machine image, which is just a billboard. That's all it is. A slot machine image. It's inside of a billboard, right? I have a canvas item, right? With a button inside, right? And an event system. And if I was to scroll in here, and if I was to click on the actual slot machine graphic itself and press F for frame select, it'll show the slot machine graphic. But I'm showing you that this is actually a 3D project that looks like it's 2D by clicking on the 2D object here, or the 2D selection. It just makes it back, makes it look like 2D, like a flat orthographic view. The camera is also at fault, eh? The camera itself is looking at it in an orthographic projection. You can change this to a perspective projection to make it look like 3D. However, it's just a billboard, a flat plane that I've just projected my image on. That's all I'm doing. Okay, that's really what it is. Okay, so the Unity editor, it looks like this. So this is the scene view, all right? This is the game view. This is what you actually will see when you play the game. Now notice there's an issue. The button is like way over here. Should be way down here. And it's actually really small, right? Where is this button to speak of, right? Well, the button, if you scroll out here, here it is. It's way out here, right? Now, why is this like this? In Unity, so I kind of scroll in here so you can see this. In Unity, what it does is it does the following. The button and any kind of user interface controls, text boxes, labels, all that stuff is in a separate layer altogether, right? It's handled by something called the canvas, right? It's another object, just like it shows here. So there's the main camera, which you can't see right now, right? There's the slot machine graphic, which is way down in here, really, really small. And then there's the canvas, which is being projected on top of your main view. That's what's happening right now, okay? So your button is a child of the canvas object. And the way to see this is why I have these kind of opened up like this for a second. Let's put them side by side for just 1 second. So here's what I actually see. This is what my scene view looks like. If I go back and look at my slot machine for a second, so if I zoom into my slot machine, notice that I don't see my button. It's up here, but I don't see it here in my slot machine itself because it's not actually part of my game objects, all right? It's actually part of my canvas. It's part of the user interface system, all right? And that's how I recommend you do it for Unity. You don't have to do it this way, and there's tons of tutorials to show you. Otherwise, I just lost my mouse again, of course, right, when I'm doing this thing. And let me just put it back. Hopefully that'll fix it like last time. Yay. But I just want to point that out. So how to fix that? Well, I would go back out, scroll out until I saw my canvas, move it over. And now with my canvas in sight, grab a hold of that button and start moving it and positioning it so it's in the right, oops, undo. And I actually grab the center of the button. Let me just grab that again, zoom right into that button. And by the way, you can do the same thing. Click on the button and click F for frame select mode so you can see the button. And grab this whole button, and you can see I can move it in place where I want it for my canvas. So This is just the interface. The user interface hovers above the actual objects themselves. And if it's too small, if this button is too small, what can I do? I could just make it bigger, right? Make my button as big as I want because it's just an image that I'm going to put somewhere on my slot machine. All right, so Unity is really intuitive, right? What it does for us is it creates an interface for us to use for creating interfaces as well. We've been using C# to create interfaces. So I'm not going to show you how to do anything more with C# because you have everything you need to do your final application, right? There's nothing that's missing really at the end of the day that I can show you that I haven't already shown you for your assignment number 5. So the remainder of the semester, I'm going to focus on Unity today as well as next week, right? So that way, if someone wanted to do another cross-platform application, you could totally do it. I will entertain questions around Visual Studio, and I will also give you solutions if you have a problem. But for the most part, you know what to do, okay? You know how to put together a Visual Studio application, right? Now, if you want to challenge yourself, I need to show you what to do. Otherwise, you won't know how to do this stuff, right? So notice that this is the slot machine graphic on the background. And what I've done is positioned it properly here in my scene. By no means does this interface correspond one-to-one with this, okay? Why would I want to use this system? Right, well, the reason why is because with Unity, and this is what I talked about before, if I can actually build, if I go build settings for Unity, build settings actually has, even in Unity 5.5, the way I had it before, I have some targets here. I can build for iOS devices. I can build for tvOS, or Android, or Tizen, or WebGL, or Samsung TV, or whatever. Lots and lots of targets. Even Xbox One and PS4 and PS Vita. And the new one has, like I said, the Nintendo Switch. If you download 5.6, it has support for Nintendo Switch out of the box. If you're interested in doing that as well. Although I'm not sure, I'm not really a fan of the whole Nintendo Switch thing myself. But that's me. That's only because I'm not a big Nintendo fan. Even when I bought the Wii and the Wii U and all that, I had all those things. And I'm probably going to get the Nintendo Switch for my son, just because, you know, it's going to be something that his friends are having, right? I got to get the same thing. But am I a fan? Am I a fan of Zelda? No, I'm not. I'm sorry, right? That everyone has their things. That's not mine. What was that? Way more. I mean, more games come out than, you know, if I can play Fallout 4 on the Switch, it's going to happen, by the way. They're planning on it, right? I'm just saying, if I could do that, and if it's a portable device, and if it has good performance, okay. Then when it comes to that point, then I'm going to look at it more seriously. But anyways, what I want you guys to do is when you build your Unity, when you run Unity, I want you to run it for WebGL. I don't want you to run a standalone version for Mac or Windows. Why? Because if you build it for WebGL, then it actually gives you a web-enabled version of your game, right? Which means I can look at the game, try it out, and you can actually share it online if you wanted to with anybody else, and it would kind of allow you to make a game that's reasonably made. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. By the way, before I go into the build settings, I'm going to put this window aside. Notice that on the game tab here, there's 2 tabs. I got my game tab and the scene tab. And for those people who are confused of what those 2 things are, before I stop, I'm going to take a break in a second. The game tab is what you see, your final version of the game that comes out. This is what it's going to look like. It's a preview of what your game looks like on this side, right? Your scene tab is just you putting objects into your scene. It's your scene graph, if you will. All the stuff you put into your scene appear here on the right side, okay? So on the left, notice there's also a little place that says the resolution is right here. The resolution right now is free aspect. Free aspect means that it can be molded to a certain any resolution, right? So it doesn't have to necessarily work for a specific resolution. Now, what I want you to do for your game, for this thing, is you can choose free aspect if you like, but it might be better for you to choose something like 640 by 480. Let me show you the difference. Here's 640 by 480. That means that your screen on some kind of web page is going to look like this. Okay? The background is blue. We can talk about how to change the background to something else later. For now, we can make it white if you want as well, right? You could also make this, instead of 640 by 480, you could make this some other resolution. 320 by 480. If you want to make it more mobile compatible, that kind of proportion, right? But for now, let's leave it at 640 by 480. And again, if it doesn't have that option here, you can make your own. You can go down here and click the plus button, and you can choose the resolution that you want and name it. Create your own custom resolution up here, whatever you're looking for. All right, what does this produce? So let's just save the scene. So again, I've created a scene for you. On the right, I'm going to kind of compress this so I can look at a list. And underneath my scenes folder, I have one scene that I made called main. That's your main scene, right? So it's already been saved once. Under your scripts, I have the slot machine script itself, right? And this is where all your goodies are. The same kind of scripting that I did for you on Visual Studio, I've done in here. And if I double click on this, it's gonna open the default editor. Because I'm using a Mac, it's gonna bring up, right? Not Visual Studio. Okay, it's gonna bring up MonoDevelop. MonoDevelop is the default Unity editor, right? It uses C#, but it doesn't use Visual Studio. Notice that it's exactly the same, right? So I've given you the exact same code in here. Here's the code. Exactly the same. There's no difference here, in fact, at all, right? So you got the code both on the Unity side as well as C#. Now the job is, how do I make it, produce, right? So that's what this little script is. The script is actually in your scripts folder, inside your assets folder, right? In your scenes folder, you have a main, and underneath your textures, you have all the objects that you want to put in your scene. So you can have all the textures, the same things I gave you guys in resources. On the Visual Studio side, you have here in textures, right here. And if you want to see them in their glory, you can actually make this a little bigger. You can see that they're the same textures that are inside here, and I've just dragged and dropped them into Unity, right here. Okay, that's where I got them from. Great. Let's save the scene. So Control-S or Command-S on the Mac, right? And I want to deploy it to WebGL. I need to add my open scene. There's only one. There it is. And then I'm going to click on Build and Run to show you what this thing does, right? I'm going to save this as, by the way, when you do a build, cancel. When you do a build, you need to define the build folder. It can't be inside your assets folder. Again, this is part of your Unity training for today, right? I need to make a new folder called builds. Inside that folder, let's make another folder. Maybe we'll call this the WebGL build because you can have more than one type of build. WebGL. Inside my WebGL build, I'm just going to call this WebGL. There we go. And click Save. And what it's going to do, it's going to take its sweet time right now when it comes to making your build. It's going to convert everything to JavaScript, right, and to HTML. It's going to actually wrap your script inside of a Unity. There's a Unity wrapper, a JavaScript wrapper that wraps. It's going to convert everything to machine code, and it's going to access everything through this wrapper that wraps around, a WebGL wrapper. Okay. Why this? Why not just run it standalone? Because I have a Mac, you have a PC. Is that the reason? No, because once you've done this, you can share it with your friends. You can share it anywhere. You can put it up on a website, no problem, right? Portfolio work, great. It's for that. If you're interested in doing that kind of thing, this is an easy way to do it. And it takes a little bit of time, as you can see, because it's converting it down to C++, right, on the back end. But what it actually does is when it's done, it'll actually kick off a little server, a little tiny server on the back end that's going to show you, that's going to run so you can launch your application. For Unity applications, for builds, for WebGL builds, if you double click on your HTML file, it will not work in Chrome, right? However, it will work with Firefox because Firefox doesn't have the same security issues as Chrome does, okay? Yes, you can. You can disable that in Chrome. I leave it on because I use Chrome for everything, right? So me disabling will be very bad, right? But it's up to you. I leave those security settings on because I surf with Chrome all the time. But again, if you don't want to, you can totally turn it off. But if you use Chrome by default, if you double click, it won't work. Firefox, it will. You can also make it work with other things. You can see how long this is taking. Just to give you an idea of the specs on my machine, I have an i7 processor, right? 16 gigs of RAM. right, and a pretty decent video card, you know, kind of a 2 GB video card. If you have anything less than that, it may take you longer. Plus, I have an SSD, right, for a hard drive. So I'm running pretty good. I got a pretty good system going on. Not, you know, not the best. Nowadays, you can get a 4 GB video card, which I recommend if you're doing graphics, right, at least. But that combined with an SSD and at least 16 gigs of RAM nowadays, if you're making games, is the way to go. But you can see, even with all those things, this takes quite a bit of time. And it has nothing to do with the scope of my project. My project is little. It doesn't do anything, and it takes this long. So when it comes to building out your process, your flow for Unity, and this is why the Unity project is more difficult to do, all right, because of all these little considerations, right? With Visual Studio, double click, you run it, and it's good to go, right? And there's ways of doing it here in Unity too. If I press this little go button up here, right, it's also going to allow me to run it and test locally, right? However, when you really want to test it out on a build, then you know that things are working, and that's the final process. So your workflow should be this. Here's my first version, right? Here's my first version. I'm going to test it out on locally, make sure that it works, then build it out. What does my build look like? Does it work? Fantastic, I'm good. Now move to the next build, the next version, right? Other things I have to talk to you about Unity when it comes to working with GitHub. GitHub and Unity don't play well together, okay? Just letting you know. So if you're gonna do things with GitHub, it has to be via command line, right, for me to make it work. And the best way to use GitHub with Unity is to shut Unity down, right, and then create a GitHub repository locally in order for you to make that go. I will show you this whole process from the get-go, right? But I'm just letting you know that's another thing you have to worry about. So you can see there's many considerations for Unity, and you already have Visual Studio. So if you want just to make the project and, you know, make it nice and happy and easy, use Visual Studio. If you want a challenge, you want to learn about games a little bit, and you want to learn about cross-platform application development, right? Then you want to go with Unity. Okay, and you can see how long this is taking. It's going to take, like I said, it's taking its sweet time. Now, if you think this is crashed, by the way, it's not crashed. All right, it just takes this long. All right. Well, remember, this is the final build, though. This is actually going to build, and if you actually build it with C# and you actually created a build for C#, it takes long too, right? I'm not asking you for a build for C#. I'm talking about like an installation with a wizard and everything else, like make your own application for C#. We haven't covered that, right? That takes some time as well, because you have to choose your assembly. You have to choose your, you know, how it's packaged up, your wizard and everything else. It can take a little bit of time if it's a larger application with C#. Not this long, definitely not, but it can take a long time, right? So this is the final thing that I want you to kind of work on, right? That's why it takes so long. And I'm showing you this in the beginning, not to discourage you. I don't want to discourage anybody, but I'm just showing them that there's quite a bit of things to take care of in Unity. So here are the advantages of Unity. Unity is a great system when it comes to making games or cross-platform applications, right? It's a good thing. You can make a lot of things across different things. On the downside, you need to learn a new interface. That's new learnings for these next 2 weeks if you're interested in doing this. So if you're going to be with me, you got to stay with me and learn Unity, right? How about, as an example, you don't want to learn Unity. Here it is. It's finally launching, right? You don't want to learn Unity. You're not interested in making games, but you just want to do my project. Do your project. Next week, when it comes to Lab 4, when I check to see how you're doing, because I'm going to check next week. As a bonus, I'm going to check to see, I'm going to do a check and X kind of exercise, right? It's going to be the same thing. Notice that there's a difference. Look what happened here. Do you see that there's a problem with my button, right? What was that?
But you already have screen, right?
Yes, but see how this is looking different, right? Because my scene changed, because I changed resolutions to 640 by 480, right? This works, but this is actually showing you, this is in WebGL. So you can do full 3D games with Unity with WebGL, right? You don't have to just do 2D. This is the easiest thing to do, but it took a long time, right? Let's just stop this for a second, right? And I'm going to come and do the build again in a second. I'll show you this. So the reason why is because notice when it changed, it didn't change around the position of the button, right? So I'm just going to close this off. Here inside my build, my canvas changed size as well to accommodate my 640 by 480, right? And so now the button should be moved back on the canvas. It's much larger, right? So I've got to move forward a little bit, and modify the size of my button to accommodate the new canvas size that I decided on, and move it into position. And the other thing that I want to do is with the canvas on the right, we're going to talk about game objects with Unity, but on the right there's this little thing that says rect transform, and on the rect transform right now it's centered to the middle. What I could do is I can make it so that it is by default connected to the bottom, right? Oops, undo. Connected to the bottom, right? So this basically says that it'll always be linked to the bottom of the screen, right? So it's responsive. If I want my background to disappear, I'm going to do that with you as well, right? But at the end of the day, you can cycle this so it's the middle. Now this button, although it says it's a button, doesn't do anything right now because you also need to set up the click event here, right? To make it run. So if I run it locally, this is, remember you asked me how oh my God, running it in Visual Studio takes 2 seconds. It takes 2 seconds here as well. Here's how it looks in Visual Studio. It looks like this. And in Unity. Running it in Unity itself, not building it, right? It doesn't take that long. It just needs an extra second to think about what's happening, right? And then it'll run locally. What it won't do is it won't rebuild your application on the in WebGL. That you have to test again if you're doing. So this is some of the stuff we have to consider as we go, right? Now you have to forgive me because I'm running multiple things at the same time, and that's why it's taking its sweet time running, right? So normally it shouldn't take this long for your application. Okay, it just runs, it'll just run here. So this is running right now, right? So my game, notice the button, when I click onto it, is actually running on this side. On this side is the scene. On this side is the button. But how come I'm not getting any code hinting or anything like that? Well, actually, if I'm going to pull this up here, let's pull up another window. I want to look at the debug window, right? Because the debug window is the one window that I want to see, right? I'm going to stop this game for a second because right now we have this. We have the game window and the scene window. And notice on the bottom over here, you have Jackpot as 500, actually running the debugger. But I want to see the debug window, right? So this is layouts on the window side. And I'm going to stop the recording in a second. We're going to take a small little break, right? What was that? No. No. The debug window is a separate window altogether that pops up over here, right? And I just want to show it to you. Where the hell is it? It moved. As always, they always move things around. Most of the windows, though, you can get right from here. For example, services, the scene, the game, the inspector. That's all this stuff on the right side, on the right-hand side, right? The project window, the animation window, the profiler is something totally different, right? There's the animator, sprite packer. There's all kinds of other stuff in here. The frame debugger is not really what I'm looking for, right? This is just the number of frames that are really running. That's what this thing is. There's actually an actual debug window, right? Which shows you this stuff down here. Oh, there it is. It's just hidden, the console window. Whoop. And this is what's happening here. So notice that it's doing the exact same stuff, but it's running all in the background, right? So just to show you this, I'm going to put it on this side here so you can see it while I'm running this thing. All right, so I'm going to stop. And if I run this thing again, right, it resets the debug window. If I click the start button, then it shows you grapes, cherry, cherry. You won $40. Jackpot is 5,000, and then your player money is 1040, right? And then the next one, banana blank banana. So the script is already running. It's not like you don't have to do any scripting here in Unity, right? The back-end code is working, and the button actually physically works. Okay. Okay, I think we need to take a short break, and after this, we're going to go more into Unity and talk about any kind of concerns you have with C#. And everything else. So let's talk during the break, and then I'll stream things as we go. Yes, before we stop? Yes. Yes, but we have to fix it. It's not really working properly. Yes. Yes. Anyone else have any questions? All right, let's take a short break. When we come back, I'm going to talk to everybody on break. When we come back, we'll talk more about this stuff.